Elon Musk just cracked the Mars landing problem that NASA couldn't solve for 20 years. The secret? It's brilliant. While NASA burns massive fuel fighting Mars gravity, Musk flips his Starship belly first and uses Mars' atmosphere as a brake. Sounds crazy? Here's why it works. This technique cuts fuel by 80% and doubles cargo capacity. But here's the shocking part. NASA engineers called it impossible until they saw Starship nail it. So how exactly does this work? And why didn't NASA think of it first? Let's dive right in. The impossible problem that broke NASA for 20 years. NASA threw everything at Mars, billions of dollars, the brightest minds on Earth, cutting-edge technology. The result? Total failure. Not because they couldn't build rockets, not because they lacked ambition, but because Mars itself seemed designed to destroy anything that tried to land on it. Picture this. You're hurtling toward Mars at 17,000 miles per hour. That's 22 times faster than a speeding bullet. Earth's thick atmosphere would slow you down gently. But Mars has almost no atmosphere at all. Just 1% of Earth's air pressure. It's like trying to stop a freight train with a feather. NASA's engineers faced a nightmare scenario. Traditional parachutes, useless in Mars thin air. Rocket engines alone? They'd burn through all your fuel before you even touch ground, and without fuel, you're never coming home. Mission after mission was scaled down, canceled, redesigned for tiny rovers instead of human crews, because landing anything bigger than a golf cart seemed impossible, until Elon Musk asked one simple question that changed everything. The question that stunned the space community. While NASA calculated fuel requirements and safety margins, Musk wondered, what if we're thinking about this completely wrong? What if the solution wasn't fighting Mars, but dancing with it? His answer shocked aerospace engineers worldwide. Instead of slowing down gradually, Starship would dive straight into Mars' atmosphere like a skydiver, belly first, at maximum speed. The reaction was immediate and brutal. Aerodynamic suicide, declared one NASA report. Another leaked memo called it the most reckless maneuver ever proposed for human spaceflight. But Musk had done something NASA hadn't. He'd run the numbers. And those numbers revealed something extraordinary. Here's what traditional Mars landers look like. 85% fuel, 15% everything else. Crew compartments, life support, scientific equipment, return fuel, all crammed into that tiny 15%. It's like trying to move your entire house in a sports car's trunk. Starship's belly flop technique flips these numbers completely. By using Mars' atmosphere as a massive air brake, fuel requirements drop by 80%. Suddenly, that sports car trunk becomes a freight train's cargo hold. 100 tons of cargo capacity, more than every single Mars mission in history combined. But here's what really stunned NASA engineers. This wasn't just theory anymore. Those spectacular Starship test flights you've seen on YouTube, the ones where it flips sideways and lands like a controlled crash, those weren't just publicity stunts. They were dress rehearsals for Mars. For 3 years, SpaceX has been secretly perfecting this technique. Each test refined the flip maneuver, perfected the engine timing, proved that what looked like a disaster was actually precision engineering. Dr. Sarah Chen, a former NASA landing specialist who joined SpaceX, revealed something that sent shockwaves through the aerospace community. When I saw the atmospheric modeling data, I couldn't believe it. This technique doesn't just work. It's more reliable than anything we'd ever designed. But landing safely is only half the battle. The real question everyone was asking, how do you get back home? Traditional Mars missions require massive infrastructure. We're talking 30,000 square meters of solar panels, 6 football fields worth, running continuously for over a year, just to make enough fuel for one return trip. The cost alone would bankrupt most countries. But remember that 80% fuel reduction? It works both ways. Starship needs only 120 tons of fuel to return to Earth. Traditional designs? 600 tons. Instead of 6 football fields of solar panels, you need one. Instead of a year-long fuel production cycle, 4 months. The implications hit NASA like a meteor strike. Mars colonies weren't decades away anymore. They were suddenly achievable. But Musk's genius goes deeper than landing techniques. He realized something NASA had completely overlooked. The moon isn't just a stepping stone to Mars. It's the secret weapon. Earth's gravity is like climbing out of a 100-foot pit. The moon's gravity, like stepping over a sidewalk curb. Launching from the moon requires 16 times less energy than launching from Earth. This creates a game-changing possibility. Use Starship to establish a lunar fuel depot first. The strategy is elegant. Deliver cargo to the moon, refuel using lunar resources, launch to Mars with full tanks, no complex orbital refueling, no fuel shortage nightmares. NASA's own analysis showed this approach could cut Mars mission costs by 70% while doubling cargo capacity. Suddenly, NASA wasn't competing with SpaceX anymore. They were partnering. Starting with Artemis 10, NASA will use Starship as their primary lunar lander. But buried in that mission profile is something remarkable. Mars Cargo Phase 1. This isn't just moon supplies. It's the first pre-positioned cargo for Mars, waiting in lunar orbit for the perfect launch window. Artemis 11 follows with Mars Cargo Phase 2. By Artemis 12, NASA plans to launch Mars 1, the first crewed Mars lander, directly from the Gateway Lunar Station. The timeline? First Mars cargo missions launch in 2029. First crewed landing, 2031. Not 30 years from now, not 20, 8 years. Why so fast? Because every piece of technology already exists. Starship is flying, the belly flop maneuver is proven, lunar fuel production is being demonstrated. But then something unexpected happened that accelerated everything even more. China announced their Mars program. Target date, 2033. Russia revealed nuclear-powered spacecraft that could cut Mars transit time from 6 months to just 45 days. The new space race wasn't to the moon anymore. It was to Mars. And the Trump administration just made an announcement that stunned the world. They want American boots on Mars in 6 years, not 10. The pressure is now enormous. But so are the stakes. Let's be brutally honest about what Mars landing actually means. When Apollo astronauts had problems on the moon, they were 3 days from home. On Mars, you're trapped for 26 months until the next Earth-Mars alignment. 4 astronauts, confined in a small habitat, for over 2 years total mission time. Then there's the radiation. Mars has no magnetic field, no thick atmosphere to block cosmic rays. Long-term exposure causes cancer, brain damage, genetic mutations. The psychological challenges alone could destroy the mission before it even starts. But here's what's remarkable. SpaceX isn't ignoring these problems. They're solving them with the same revolutionary thinking that created the belly flop landing. The radiation problem seemed impossible until SpaceX proposed something radical. What if the spacecraft itself becomes the radiation shelter? Starship's fuel tanks, when empty, can be filled with water or Martian soil. This creates natural radiation shielding that's more effective than traditional materials. The psychological isolation problem? Starship's massive internal volume allows separate living areas, exercise spaces, even hydroponic gardens. It's not just a spacecraft, it's a flying city. But the real revolution isn't technical, it's economic. Current Mars mission estimates, $500 billion per attempt. Starship's approach, under $50 billion. That's not just cost reduction. That's a complete paradigm shift. Suddenly, Mars missions become affordable for multiple attempts. Backup plans, even private funding. SpaceX has already announced Mars transport seats for paying customers. The price? $500,000 per person? Expensive? Yes. Impossible? Number Mars colonies funded by private investment, Mars real estate development, Mars mining operations. We're not just exploring Mars anymore. We're preparing to own it. But Musk isn't the only visionary working this problem. Buzz Aldrin's Mars Cycler concept is like a cosmic bus route. One massive vessel loops continuously between Earth and Mars, never stopping, never landing. Every 26 months, smaller taxi ships dock with it in space, transferring crew and supplies. The challenge? That high-speed docking maneuver. Miss your window, and you're stranded in space with no fuel to catch up. It's literally a one-shot deal. Then there's Robert Zubrin's mini Starship approach. His argument, Musk's full-size Starship is overkill for Mars. His solution? Launch a smaller version that uses 1/16th the fuel for Mars operations. Each approach solves different pieces of the Mars puzzle, and NASA is now considering combining all three strategies. All this timeline acceleration raises one critical question. Are we moving too fast? NASA's traditional approach prioritizes safety above everything. Test multiple times, build redundant backup systems, accept longer timelines to ensure crew survival. SpaceX embraces calculated risks. Test, fail, learn, iterate quickly. Accept that failures are inevitable, but design systems that recover. Both philosophies have merit, but they're completely incompatible. The question facing Mars planners right now, which approach gives astronauts the best chance of survival? NASA says slow and steady wins the race. SpaceX argues that speed and adaptability matter more than perfect planning. This brings us to the dimension most people ignore. Mars isn't about science anymore. It's about power. The country that establishes the first permanent Mars colony controls humanity's next frontier. The economic implications are staggering. The political advantages, enormous. That's why the Trump administration is pushing for acceleration. They want American footprints on Mars before Chinese ones. But here's the twist. International cooperation might actually be the fastest path forward. Could we see a joint US-China Mars mission? The technical benefits would be incredible. The political challenges, even bigger. What most people don't realize is how far this technology has already progressed. Every Starship belly flop landing wasn't just testing Earth landings. The atmospheric modeling, the flip dynamics, the engine restart sequences, all of it translates directly to Mars. The data from these tests convinced even NASA's most skeptical engineers. But there's something else, something SpaceX hasn't publicized. They've been running Mars landing simulations in their private facilities. Full-scale atmospheric chambers, Martian gravity simulators, the works. The results remain classified, but sources close to the program say the success rate is remarkable. Landing on Mars is just the beginning. Surviving there requires massive infrastructure, power generation, water extraction, fuel production, habitat construction, food production. Traditional approaches require sending this infrastructure first, then hoping it works when humans arrive years later. Starship's cargo capacity changes this completely. You can send redundant systems, backup equipment, even entire spare habitats. If something breaks, you have replacements. If systems fail, you have alternatives. This redundancy could be the difference between life and death on Mars. The Trump administration's 6-year timeline has NASA engineers working overtime, not because it's impossible, but because the margin for error just evaporated. Traditional space programs take decades because they test everything multiple times. They build in safety margins. They plan for every possible failure mode. 6 years means calculated risks, parallel development, testing systems while building them. It's exactly how SpaceX operates. But it's the opposite of how NASA traditionally works. The culture clash is enormous. The technical challenges, even bigger. So here's what we know. Musk's belly flop technique just shattered every assumption about Mars landing. We went from impossible to inevitable, from $100 billion pipe dreams to $50 billion reality. But here's what really matters. This isn't just about getting to Mars first. It's about whether we become the generation that makes humanity multiplanetary or the one that stayed earthbound forever. The next 6 years will rewrite space history, and we'll be covering every breakthrough, every setback, every mind-blowing development right here on Space Core. Because this Mars race, it's just getting started. China's nuclear rockets, NASA's lunar fuel depots, private Mars colonies funded by billionaires. Which brings me to the question keeping space engineers awake at night. If we can revolutionize Mars landing with one brilliant insight, what other impossible problems are just waiting for someone to ask the right question? The universe just got a whole lot smaller and a whole lot more interesting. What do you think? Are we moving too fast or not fast enough?